Hey everyone, welcome back. And I'm pretty excited today because it looks like the Elcan guys made an LPVO. Today we'll be checking out the SAI 1-6 with the 5.56 Rapid Aiming Feature Reticle from Armament Technology Incorporated. And we can see if this scope stirs up as much drama as the Elcan does with the sweaty kids on the internet. All right, though, let's get started. So today's scope we're going to be looking at is an LPVO, or low power variable optic, and it's also in first focal plane. Now, low power variable optic, as a bit of a primer, means it goes from like 1x magnification to some larger magnification range. The SAI 1-6 then goes from 1x magnification all the way to 6x magnification, like in the name. The scope, as I said, is first focal plane, which means the reticle also changes size as the magnification changes to give you accurate bullet drop measurements at all magnification distances. But first focal plane can make that 1x particularly challenging, so we'll see how the ATI guys overcame that with this scope model. But we have made an entire video on first focal plane versus second focal plane if you want more information on which one you'd prefer. And I'll link to that somewhere up here and also down in the description if you want to watch that. But I'm getting really excited to tear into the scope. But first, let's explore a little bit about who Armament Technology Incorporated actually is. The ATI team is a group of designers, engineers, and international class long-range marksmen that takes the aspects of design, utility, and performance and push it to its very limit. And the SAI line is one of their optics lineup that's kind of designed for the recreational competitive shooter that really just wants that top tier in terms of accuracy and functionality. And what says top tier optics review? Like reviewing it in some guy's backyard. So today we'll definitely give the scope a once over. So first we'll start off by seeing everything that comes in the box, and then we'll take a look at the optic up close, followed by going over mounting and our primary Arms GLx scope mount. No, I'll do a video on that later. It's not done yet. Then we'll dig into this 5.56 Rapid Aiming Feature Reticle and then put the SAI 1-6 through a series of tests to include 1x clarity, eye relief, illumination, turrets, glass clarity, and then we'll do some close range tests here in the yard, and then we'll do the fun stuff with some long range testing out on the range with some live fire. And then as always, we'll wrap it up with our usual pros and cons. So let's get started on all of those things and let's look at what all comes in the box.
Okay, so here's our fancy SAI 1-6 box in this cool little green color. Now let's see if I can figure out how to open this thing. Here we go. Ooh, all right, look at this. This looks really nice. Like that's a pretty cool presentation to open up to. Okay, let's see what's in here. Oh, is that like a Canadian maple leaf patch? I'm totally gonna steal that. All right, let me get the, wait, what is this thing? Oh, an ATI battery cap tool. Okay, this is actually just a quarter. That's not a quarter, but it's like a token. All right, ooh, then we have our cool little patch. Look at that. It looks pretty cool. I like that little Canadian maple leaf. All right, next, what is in here? This is our actual manual. I don't know why I always go through every page of the manual. I mean, if you guys hate this, let me know. But, you know, here's all the data on this. I just feel bad if I show like one page and then I don't show the rest of it. A bunch of warnings, how to set a bunch of different pieces, how to adjust your diopter. Make sure you do that because otherwise it's never going to work properly. How to use the magnification. You know how to do this. Yeah, the battery, the turrets. Well, those are some weird looking turrets, but okay. We'll look at those in just a second. What is this? How to zero. If you don't know how to zero by now, but at least the manual has it in there. Ooh, okay, there's a zero stop. I don't know what they're doing with that. Either way, you can read the instructions. Okay, you can use a little tool to remove the battery cap. And there's how the battery sits in there. Use a knife. That's bold. Ooh, there's a kill flash. I hope that comes in here. All right. Let's see if we can get that, if I can turn up this page. Oh, here's our reticle. That's interesting. Okay, we'll look over all that, though. And then we have all of our maintenance and warranty stuff. Yeah, a bunch of nonsense. Okay, whatever. All right, and then what else is this? This looks like, oh, okay, so these are some of the lens pens. I have a lot of these, like I got from TNVC for like my PVS 14s. They're super nice. Oh, and here's our kill flash. Look at this thing. So that works by getting the reflection off the front of the actual scope. All right, here we go. Let's get the actual scope out though, and we'll play with that kill flash in a minute. So here we are. Here's our actual SAI 1-6. Like, look at that finish though. Holy moly, does that look pretty good. Definitely a fan of that. All right, well, let's look at some of these different features up close, but goodness gracious. Just the actual coloring is wonderful. All right, so first we have the actual end caps. These are flip-up caps. Look at that. They just actually spring up into position. How do you get them? Can you get them off? You can. Okay, you kind of got to pry them off. They fit on here nice and tight. Oh, here's the actual diopter. Look at this diopter adjustment. It is just buttery smooth. That is wonderful to see. All right, let's look at the actual magnification. Here we are at, from 1 to 6, and rotating this is just stupid nice. I'd argue you don't really need a throw lever. It's so easy, but it would make it easier. But that's ridiculously good. Okay, next we have our turrets. So let's remove these. We got these little caps. If I can figure out how to get this off. There we go. Take the little caps off, and then we have, okay, all right. I'm kind of confused by this. Do I turn? Yeah. Oh, nope. Do you pull at it? Oh, no. Look what I figured out. You got to turn this little thing in the middle, and it's, God, that's horrible. I'm definitely going to have issues with that later. Oh, this is so frustrating. All right, what about the top? Please tell me they put some sort of better thing on the top that I actually have to maybe use. Nope. Oh, it's the same one. See that middle thing? You have to turn just the middle part and nothing else. It doesn't work very well. Put those back on. Okay, next is the Illumination, and oh, look at that. It has a little stop at the bottom, off in between. This is phenomenal. I really like this. Yeah. And then on the front, we have another one of our caps. That's cool. And then here's our kill flash. Now, what's interesting is it's not the same color, but here you can see how the kill flash works. It removes all that reflection. I just don't know why they did two different finishes on it. But people sometimes wonder what it looks like looking through the kill flash. You can't even notice that it's on there. And then removing our battery, I can show you the actual orientation. I don't know if I would use a knife to remove it, but you could, but that's how the battery sits.
Okay, so that's everything that comes with it and all the bits and bobs all up close and personal. So next we mount things all up, and this is where you'll find that link when it comes out eventually to that really amazing scope mounting video. Now, I had actually planned to set this up in our ScalarWorks mount, but I forgot it's actually the wrong size ring. And then I realized I actually put the ADM QD mount on the Primary Arms PLX when we were doing some scope mount testing. So here I just went with the tried and true Primary Arms GLx mount. And out on the market, you're gonna find scope mounts anywhere between like $60 and $400. And the Primary Arms GLx scope mount is a great mount that just won't break the bank. But the Aero Lightweight and Primary Arms PLX are some lighter options, but you can also go totally crazy with the ScalarWorks, Unity, and Reptilia mounts. Yes, I put the T2 on there just to make Joe mad. Installing it all into the mount was a breeze though, and I got everything just barely snug and got my eye relief perfect and locked it all down, and then we mounted it on our 16-inch BRN 180. Now, the SAI 1-6 has a 5.56 BDC, so I can't really use our 20-inch or our 12.5-inch testing platform. And Old Faithful has that Primary Arms PLX 1-8 M8 meters on it that I still need to get done. So we just went ahead and put everything together on our BRN 180 because it'll work perfect for the solution. So next, let's take a look at this fancy reticle this thing's got on it. Now, as the reticle moves with magnification, let's look at the 1X first. As you can see, the reticle has stadia lines at 3, 6, and 9 o'clock, similar to some other optics we've seen in the past. These lines are designed to draw your eye to the center to aid in tracking of the reticle at 1X magnification. Now, one thing I want to note, and I'm sure it's going to come up in testing, is that those stadia lines don't actually extend all the way to the edge of the scope when you're in the 1X magnification. And we'll see if that impacts us in any way when we do the actual close range tests. But previous scope reviews kind of have me already inclined to say that I would probably want that fourth stadia line at the 12 o'clock position to track the center reticle position better. Moving to the center of the reticle though, we see there is a center dot in the middle of the optic. Brass facts, do you see that? you better be getting excited. Around the center of the dot are also these Call of Duty hit markers, I guess, to help draw your eye and focus your attention to the center of the reticle. And I get how it's supposed to work, but I'm just worried they're going to be too small to do anything at 1x and then super huge when we go to 6x. But we'll see, I suppose. The idea is that those X-wing targeting markers help you focus in on the center target along with the stadia lines to allow you to move rapidly from target to target in close range engagement. And I'll give you a little bit of foreshadowing here. Those stadia lines do help a good bit. But tell you what, let's move this reticle into the 6x magnification and show off what this thing can really do. Here we see a primary arms level of reticle transformation. The stadia lines flow all the way out to the edges, and we have a ton more information. The center dot turns into a full cross, and the Call of Duty hit markers? That's what they are, right? I mean, right? Anyway, they're designed to square up an 18-inch target at 100 yards to give you distance estimation. The center cross is a 0.5 mil in either direction to engage you in target correction also. Moving to the left and right, we see full mil hash markings, so you can do your range calculations if you know your fancy math. And then as we go down, we see some really cool stuff. One thing I didn't see that I'm used to seeing though is what bullet weight and barrel length that BDC is even calibrated to. You usually need that data along with what adjustments you need to get it aligned at your specific elevation. And a 55 grain out of a 16-inch barrel isn't going to go to 800. I'll tell you that right now. So it has me a little bit intrigued as to what bullet weight they're wanting to use for this BDC and then at what velocity. But back to it. The BDC is set all the way from 100 yards all the way down to 800, along with windage markers to allow for easy wind holds at all positions. Now, another thing interesting is that the wind holds aren't actually measured incrementally like kind of how the BDC elevation is. They're just in mil increments. So then you need to remember that your 1 mil hold at 400 yards is probably somewhere like 1.5 mil at 600. And a lot of scopes have that adjustment built into the windage when it's a BDC reticle, so just be aware of that. Now, the reticle does give you a feature I love seeing with the horizontal and vertical ranging. The horizontal ranging is set at 300, 400, and 500 markers. This allows you to align the correct marker to get a proper shoulder-to-shoulder distance, and then you'd already be at the correct ranging position to engage the shot. And the feature is pretty slick, and I've seen it on a few other scopes, and I generally love that. Just being able to square up and then already be at the correct position without having to make any turret adjustments is awesome. Now the reticle also uses vertical ranging, and this is measured at the bottom where you align your target and measure upward to get the proper ranging distance. And one more slightly odd one to note is that this is for half targets, so it's going to be from waist up. That means you'd always align the crotch at the bottom and measure upward to get your vertical distance and then adjust to get the proper BDC indicator and then engage. And I actually got educated on those half heights by Dimitri over at Primary Arms, and it's actually really smart when your target's obscured or they're in a vehicle or riding a bike or something, and you need to make those super quick ranging estimations. Now, how you're gonna use 556 out to 800? Well, that's up to you. Like, this has to be set for 77 grain, right? I mean, it has to be. Either way though, it's gonna make it super interesting when we test it on the range with 55 grain. Whatever, we'll figure it out when we get out there. But let's move on to some tests, and the first one's gonna be that 1x clarity. And I'll tell you right now, the 1x on the SAI 1-6 is incredibly impressive. There's really great image clarity, and the overall image has the absolute slightest fisheye on the edge of the lens as you pan around. And I promise the camera's making it look worse. In real life, it's absolutely imperceivable when you're aiming with both eyes open, like you're supposed to. The SAI 1-6 does have some image distortion when you have objects within about 3 yards, and due to physics, all LPVOs have issues with this, But the SAI 1-6 did so particularly well during this test and had some of the least distortion I'd ever seen with objects in close ranges such as this. And it really makes the SAI 1-6 actually viable for close range or CQB, which is pretty surprising. We'll see if the reticle can support that use case though. All right, what's our next test? Eye relief. And this one does particularly well. Let me show you. On the website, the eye relief is listed at 3.4 inches if you wanted to know this technical number. But in reality, I find those numbers to be super useless. It never really explains to me how tight or forgiving the actual eye box is. So let's look for ourselves and let's start at 1x. And here the SAI 1-6 gives you an absolute ton of wiggle room in the eye box. Leaning into my comment about CQB use, the eye box is extremely forgiving and would make those quick engagements super simple. Swapping to 6x magnification, we see the eye box gets tighter, but not to any sort of insane degree. The reticle and image stays in view nicely, even with us off center, and is far more forgiving than those scopes that just go to black nothing if you breathe funny. Looking at you, Leopold. But yeah, thumbs up from me on eye relief, and I'm really interested to see how it plays into some of the other tests. All right, then moving on to our next one, which is gonna be illumination. Yeah. The SAI 1-6 illumination knob moves from a hard stop at off through 10 illumination settings that have an off position between each illumination setting, and then there is another hard stop at the top. The knob is extremely clean and crisp, and there's no confusion if you move to a different setting, while also giving you enough resistance to make it almost impossible to just bump and change. And this is actually my favorite illumination control so far, as it's just simple and clean. And with the included stops, I can tell if I'm all the way down or all the way at max magnification without even looking at the illumination setting. Now, the illumination of the reticle is actually in a cross and includes the side mill markers and also has this top line illuminated that doesn't really give you any valuable reticle data. We just avoided talking about that little guy. Testing at 1x, I found the illumination does extremely well. It's not red dot bright, but damn is it close. Testing illumination on an extremely bright day, I was able to easily see the cross in the X-Wing Call of Duty thing. And the illumination actually makes the reticle much easier to track as it moves around. Swapping to 6x, we see the cross illumination becomes much more useful. We could use the side illumination to measure target distance with our mill hash marks. Additionally, our BDC and horizontal ranging is still illuminated to use those markers at distance. I wanted to note that I also had no issues seeing the illumination even on a bright day. Now I'm talking scope level bright in terms of illumination, not necessarily like surface of the sun illumination that only lasts for 1 hour. It's a 2023 battery. I don't want to carry around 80 of them. But the illumination is well done and completely functional. All right though, next we move to turrets. Let's do it. Now the turrets on this scope are capped, but I think that's where all the good parts end. The turrets are absolutely awful and are by far the weakest point of this entire scope. The turrets themselves have to be turned using some sort of special tool or screwdriver to push along the edge. And this makes small adjustments or 1 to 2 clicks an exercise in frustration. The turrets on this setup are just embarrassing, and it made the zeroing process a complete chore. Like, have you ever seen those like $200 Burris scopes? Well, congratulations, because you got the same turrets. And why this was done, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense, but thankfully with the BDC, you'd set it and then never ever mess with those again. Thank goodness. All right, though, let's keep this thing moving and we're gonna move on to the next test, which is glass clarity. Now, I've had some issues capturing this well for you, but I have to say the SAI 1-6 absolutely murders the glass clarity department. You have some of the cleanest and crispest images across all of the magnification ranges to give you excellent target ID out to range. But that's all the tests. Let's go out in the yard and see how this thing does with some close range engagements. Here I found the Stadia lines did a really great job in helping me keep tabs on the center of the reticle. I will say I really wish they went all the way to the edges, as the whatever Call of Duty hit markers don't really do anything for me as I try to move rapidly. They're just too small to give me any useful information or draw my eye, while somehow also being completely in the way. I was able to quickly move between targets, but it wasn't until I turned on the illumination that I really felt confident in where I was at in space, and felt like I could really crank up the speed as my eyes could better track what I was doing and where I was going. I think it's the first time that turning on illumination made my brain make sense of what the reticle was doing again. All right, though, let's move on to the super fun stuff and go head out to the range and test this thing out. The first thing we did was set our 100-yard zero and then took some time to get used to the reticle at our 100 and 300-yard distances. I do have to say that the large black hit markers have become extremely obnoxious as they take up a large field of view while offering me no valuable information. Let's just engage some and see how it goes. Well, transitions are pretty easy, but we've done this 100 times. Let's do some successive 300-yard engagements. Again, super easy, but it's got that fancy reticle all the way out to 800 yards, so let's move over to the 600-yard side. Here our trigger cam actually did a very good job of showing off just the quality and clarity of the scope and reticle as we tested the various BDC markers at the different distances. First though, we confirmed at 300 again. Then we took it over to the 430-yard target to get everything dialed in. And 400 with 55 grains pretty easy, but let's see about 600. We started out and set it on the 600-yard marker with the larger gong. Nothing? As we were going, we really couldn't tell where the bullet was landing, so we swapped over to the smaller target with the dirt backstop. We then made a shot at the 600 marker, and we spotted the impact a good bit higher than we were aiming. And this range and target has produced some odd distances when we actually shoot it, and for some reason it shoots more like 550 yards for some reason. I don't know, I don't get it, it's magic or something. And we did range this many times as it shows up as 600 yards on our Mavic RF1. So we just adjusted and then took a few more shots once we were dialed in. I went with the 500 marker knowing this range was wonky and got one just off the edge of the reticle due to not accounting for the wind we had that day. We then slipped over to the 1 mil windage marker and got some hits in. Now, it is a bit odd that we got hits at this marker at this distance, but we have had some wonky things at this distance, this actual target before, so I wouldn't go so far as to say the actual BDC is off, but we did go back to the 430 to reconfirm and make sure nothing had shifted on the actual scope itself. Yep, it's dead on, but that also makes me even more confused. One thing of note though is a 55 grain 5.56 out to 400 is super clean and super accurate and easy to do. 600 was a whole lot less skill and a whole lot more luck. The bullet is just doing a lot of random things at 600 yards, and it makes me really wonder how I'm supposed to shoot with this thing out to 800 yards. But anyway, let's do some pros and cons, and the first pro I want to get into is actually the illumination. I really enjoyed both the illumination knob design to give you an intuitive illumination selection method and the illumination itself. While it's not surface of the sun bright, it worked great on a bright day and gave me data that made the reticle itself work better at 1x, while then giving me additional illumination on the BDC portion to make those longer range shot at dusk or in low light situations. And I think it's the first time I've ever said something good about illumination. All right, the next pro is actually gonna be the eye relief and that glass clarity. The super high detail glass and forgiving eye box makes this SAI 1:6 an absolutely great overall system to engage targets quickly. The low glass distortion makes navigating indoors intuitive, and you can crank up the magnification to make those precise target engagements at range with that super great glass clarity and detail. It's one of the rare optics I probably won't make fun of you for using in CQB environments. All right, though, for the last pro, I want to talk about the additional accessories and the superb controls. Having the included kill flash is a great addition and shows that the ATI guys are really thinking of the professional end user in their product designs. The magnification and diopter throw are just so insanely smooth, and the entire scope has a build quality that puts this scope housing at the top tier of all LPVOs. But we knew this part was coming, the cons. And the first one is the 1X and the silly whatever things on the reticle. The reticle really seems to get too small at 1X, and the whole thing gets lost pretty easily if you don't have illumination on. And then those weird reticle bits. Now, these may be added to get the younger generation more excited about the reticle, but from a usability standpoint, they were too small at 1X to give any valuable data to my eye, while simultaneously being so obnoxiously large at 6X that they got in the view of literally everything. It's just these sets of useless, angry eyebrows that are just like plastered into the middle of your view. And the little eyebrows got more and more annoying as we used the scope more during the day. All right, we gotta talk about the next con. It's a big one, the turrets. Now, the only saving grace here is that the BDC allows you to never actually have to touch these after zeroing, but the turrets themselves are beyond horrible. Making any sort of adjustment is extremely frustrating, and making just one click borders on impossible. If you told me I had to go zero this scope again, I'd be legitimately annoyed. And having these turrets on this price point of scope, I don't know, that's just a pretty big pill to swallow. Oh, cool scope. Is that you're just getting started? Is that a Burris?
Oh, this thing? Yeah, it's a Burris. I got a pretty good deal on it. I paid like $100 over at the bargain bin over at Cabela's. But is yours a Burris? It looks like we got the same turrets.
No, it's not a Burris, but yeah. Yes, same turrets. So that's everything on the scope, and I suppose I have to make a recommendation to you. And I'm totally gonna cop out on this one and you're gonna hate it. And that's because the trade-offs are so big, it would really depend on what you were doing. Is the high quality glass and premium controls worth it over the X-Wing targeting reticle and face-punchingly bad turret controls? And that's a question for you, but at the $1,200 price point, I'd struggle in recommending it to others after weighing the pros and cons as to what I'd use it for. But maybe it's perfect for you based on your needs, your budget, and your mission set. But overall, this is a difficult one to go either way because there's so many different high and low points, so it really depends on your needs and what you're doing. But I hope you found this review of the SAI 1-6 useful in your purchasing decisions. I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon supporters and all of our YouTube members. You make it possible to see all these crazy scopes and X-Wing markers and all this stuff, and I absolutely love you for it. And I want to say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below what you think about that reticle. I want to hear about it. All right, everyone, Walsh out. It's just like the weirdest thing. I'm just like sitting at the range shooting, and I have like the strangest urge to play Star Wars Rogue Squadron.